you might have very high CTRs, like for example in fake ads, but that doesn't mean necessarily higher revenue or higher LTV, right? So in the end, there are different or too many conversion rates from impression to click in this case, or from clicks to installs, installs to in-app actions, and so on and so forth. That you need to find the sweet spot between all of them to actually have a better impact or a good impact on the revenue or LTV or whatever metric you're keen on, right?
What are the 15 worst, most awful, incredibly horrific mistakes you can make in mobile user acquisition? Hello and welcome to Growth Masterminds. My name is John Koetsi. I saw something really interesting on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago. Someone posted and said they managed 26 million euros in ad spend to scale apps over the past 12 months. And they learned 15 of the worst performance killing mistakes. Well, after that, I had no choice. I had to invite them onto Growth Masterminds and discuss all this stuff. Here with us is the author of that LinkedIn post. His name is Pablo Gonzales. He's a performance marketing director for Admiral Media. He's worked in performance and digital marketing for over a decade for Mercado Libre, Banco Galicia, and multiple other brands. Welcome, Pablo.
Thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to be here, to be honest. Thanks for the invite.
I'm just happy that you responded to some crazy dude on LinkedIn who said, "Hey, I like your post. Let's talk about it on a podcast." And you did.
That's
That's
how the industry
awesome.
works, I guess, right?
That's how the industry works. You get connected, you take advantage. There you go. Let's jump right in. I mean, you manage a lot of spend. You promote a lot of apps. You've learned a lot of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. So within the agency, we mostly manage app clients. And in the past 12 months, we managed 26 million euros, as you correctly said. And yeah, I have seen so many times a few basic mistakes for marketers that definitely we all should avoid.
Awesome. So we're going to run through all 15. We'll have to be brief. We don't want to do 2 hours of conversation. Nobody will listen to all of that. I'll just list them off, your 15 key learnings or key mistakes, things not to do. And then give us a little bit of color around each one of them, a little bit of insight. Your first one is not diversified across multiple ad platforms.
Yeah, so it also relates to diversifying your portfolio very close to investment, right? Or money investing. But basically, the correlation with paid actions or marketing in general is basically if you are all into one bucket. Let's say if you're investing everything into Google Ads, TikTok, Opposite Chats, whatever channel it is, then first of all, you have nothing to compare it with. And secondly, if that bucket starts getting holes, then you will lose everything, right? And so by diversifying, you can actually achieve better performance and higher revenues overall, and not rely only on a single ad.
It makes a ton of sense. I remember doing some research on this way back when. I think I was consulting for Tune at the time, and the best mobile marketers, the ones who were achieving the most success, were using at that time between 8 and 15 different platforms. I'm sure the number's gone way up for some, and for others, it's lower. Depends on your budgets and your scale
Yeah.
and what you're doing, but diversification does matter. Number two is reducing iOS spend because of scan tracking limitations. Why is that a key error?
Well, since ATT was introduced almost 2 years and a half ago, I have seen so many times advertisers and marketers actually stopping or reducing iOS spend, and not related to app search ads, of course, because it wasn't affected by scan tracking limitations. But so iOS is usually the best performing operative system, right? And I say usually because it's not 100% the case, but it's usually the situation that we have seen for our clients. And if you make a decision to reduce the spend there, then it means that you're missing big opportunities, right? Or have also seen some advertisers switching, I don't know, Meta or Google or TikTok budget to Apple Search Ads. And Apple Search Ads, it has its own limitation because it's super related to search volumes, which is similar to Google search for web campaigns or even app campaigns as well. So definitely a wrong decision as well.
I think that's a great insight because, just because the marketing measurement changed and obviously degraded didn't mean the people were gone, didn't mean they weren't buying iPhones, didn't mean that they weren't installing apps on iOS, didn't mean they weren't paying for things in apps. And so taking away your marketing didn't make any sense. That's a great point about Apple search ads, because if you're something that is brand new and maybe there isn't a search volume for you, you've got a little bit of a challenge there, right? So that makes a ton of sense. Your third one, third mistake, failing to account for campaigns not meeting scan minimum thresholds. Talk about that.
Yeah, also related to the previous one. So because you were not having enough conversions attributed, or you weren't getting revenue reported in your scan campaigns. So you need to deep dive on why you're not getting them, basically, because there is a way, of course, to get them if you reach the minimum install thresholds that Apple has. So you need to actually take care of your campaigns, check the numbers, analyze what are the number of installs you're getting on a daily basis, and then, of course, to rework or rethink the conversion volume mapping strategy that you have applied.
Mm-hmm. The good news is it's getting better in Scan 4. I know it's taking a while for Scan 4 to get here, but the good news is that crowd anonymity is a little more forgiving than privacy thresholds. So you're going to have fewer null values. That's a great thing. Mistake number 4, not consistently testing creatives, copy, and calls to action. Talk about that.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of experimenting. By experimenting, you can actually have something, your current performance. You're able to compare your current performance with something, right? So I said creatives, copy, CTAs, but it also applies to different features like DCO, dynamic creative optimization in Meta or in TikTok as well. It could be to audience targeting, lookalikes versus broad versus interest, for instance. So by testing, you can actually identify which opportunities you can find out there.
It's super interesting, and I get it, right? Because testing eats some budget, but it also makes budget spend more efficient, right? So there's got to be that balance between I've got a great creative and a great call to action here, and it's getting great results, and always trying to beat your best, which is hard to do. There's some people who have like this creative that is amazing, and they can't beat it for half a year or a year. But eventually, the world changes, or your ads change, or your intended users, audience, customers change, and something will beat it. Number 5 is related. So it's not just about testing, but number 5 is not having a creative testing approach. Talk about why that's important to have a creative testing approach.
Yeah, super related to the previous one. And from my perspective, this is among the top 3, I would say. By the way, I didn't sort them out from highest priority to lowest priority because it depends on where you want to focus your efforts. But to properly test something, you need to have a plan, right? And that's what I mean by creative testing approach. And it will also apply for audience testing, copy testing, CTA, or whatever thing that you're testing out there. If you don't have a plan, then you don't know how to react if the data is not coming, or maybe the data is not coming, or you don't have enough data because the test approach was completely wrong, right? Or maybe you didn't have any. So by identifying the different steps on the plan, then you would be able to come up with the results afterwards, analyze them, and reiterate for the next tests.
That makes so much sense, because if you're kind of ad hoc about testing and just kind of change your methodology from time to time, you don't even have a defined methodology. You may not even be able to compare test versus test, and you're just kind of shooting in the dark a little bit. Makes sense. Mistake number 6, not aligning ad messaging with the app's core value proposition. I guess you're not a fan of fake ads.
Not really, to be honest. I mean, I also I always rely on data, right? And yes, you might have very high CTRs, like for example in fake ads, but that doesn't mean necessarily higher revenue or higher LTV, right? So in the end, there are different or too many conversion rates from impression to click in this case, or from clicks to installs, installs to in-app actions, and so on and so forth. That you need to find the sweet spot between all of them to actually have a better impact, or a good impact on the revenue or LTV or whatever metric you're keen on, right? If there's a mismatch between what the user sees in the ad, so this will create some expectations, right? So if there's a mismatch between what they expect and what they see after clicking on the ad, which is basically what they will see in the App Store, then the conversion rate from clicks to install will drop heavily. And if the CTRs are not high enough to balance that out, then you're losing actually a revenue.
That is the old instant delete, huh? I open the app.
Exactly.
It is not what I expected. Boom, gone. No mercy. Out.
100%.
Yeah. Mistake number 7, over boosting underperforming campaigns. What's going on here? Are people just falling in love with something and saying, it will work, it will work?
Yeah, this one and the next one are somehow related. It also applies for scan related campaigns, right? Because you don't have too much visibility on what's going on, because again, you might not be reaching the install threshold, or the conversion volume mapping is not the best one, or because of whatever reasons. You might think that the campaign is or might be working, but in the end, it's not the case, right? So you need to understand and analyze the data that you have. And also, it could also apply for Android campaigns where the tracking is pretty much in place as it used to be before. We don't know how it will change with Privacy Sandbox next year. But it could also be that you are not taking a look at the right picture, right? Because there are some self-attributed networks that might be over-reporting revenue or installs or different in-app actions. And if you don't compare this with any other data source, such as an MMP or your own internal tracking system and reporting system, then you might also think that the campaign is actually working very good. And in the end, it might not, right?
Staying on top of your data. Cool. Mistake number 8, you mentioned it's very related. Keeping poor performing ad creatives running, hoping they'll turn around soon. What's going on there?
I personally like to rely or base my decisions on data. So if you don't actually change anything, then data is not likely to be likely to be improved just because of magic, right? So if a creative is not working and nothing changes, then that creative won't work in the future either, right? So it's better to take fast decisions, like iterate based on the data that you have. Again, and by iterate, I mean change creatives or change the landing page or whatever, but you need to change something, or maybe the audience that's seeing the ad, right? But you need to change something for it to improve. Otherwise, impossible.
Makes sense. Yeah, magic rarely happens. So brutal.
Yeah.
I like to hope maybe I wouldn't make a good performance marketing manager. And mistake number 10, getting ahead of myself. Mistake number 9, ignoring ad placement data and other breakdowns. That is a super interesting one. Not all ads are the same. Not all placements are the same. Talk about that.
Yes. So, for example, UGC content, we know it's usually delivered in a vertical format. So 9:16 ratio for the technical ones. But that probably won't work on the feed, right? Because feeds usually use 4:5 or square 1:1, right? So definitely need to understand how the data is performing on different breakdowns, placement, gender, age, and almost or any other breakdown you might have available in the ad network. But it's also true, and I have also a LinkedIn post about it, that, for example, running scan campaigns, we launched 3 or 4 ad sets. Let's say one we were targeting feeds, on the other one we were targeting stories, and on the other one we were targeting the rendering placements in Meta. And we got attributed installs and enough conversions for placement we were not targeting, right? So it wasn't getting any impression, but because of Meta's own attribution modeling based on scan, which doesn't report ad set level data, they were assuming that or attributing installs and enough events to a placement that wasn't getting any impressions. So you also need to be careful about it.
You just told me you don't believe in magic. What the heck?
It is what it is. You need to understand how the data is built.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Your next one's kind of related to that, actually. It's a great segue. Mistake number 10, only looking at in-platform reporting. Hint, your MMP can be a treasure.
Yeah, I kind of covered that with a self-attributed comment I did before. Um, Personally like to contrast trends and specific data from different sources. So it could be that the own ad networks and the MEP, which could be singular or any other, but definitely you need to understand if the trend that you're seeing in one data source is actually following the trend that you see in another one. If not, then you need to deep
Mhm.
dive and understand why there's such discrepancy.
It's kind of related to what Singular calls hybrid attribution as well. Is just look at all the different data sets because you'll see different things in them and different things will be actionable. It makes a ton of sense. Absolutely love it. Mistake number 11, ignoring retention and churn rates. In other words, I
Mhm.
just get the user. You do something with.
Exactly. So there needs to be a correlation between the product team and the marketing team, because otherwise you will be paying for users who are actually being retained for 1 day, or they are not converting into. I mean, we have seen it too many times that users start the trial for subscription-based apps, and after the trial ends, or even before the trial ends, 7 days, 3 days, or whatever, then the users cancel the trial and they don't convert into subscription, right? So they are not coming back to the app because they need to pay to use the app further. So the churn rate in those cases will be high and the retention rate will be low, right? So you don't need to take a look only at, okay, we have cost per acquire user or CAC goal of 15, 20 or whatever. So we are below that, everything is fine. No, it doesn't work that way.
Mistake number 12, ignoring app uninstalls as a feedback metric. Talk about that.
You mentioned it when we were covering a previous bullet point. Um, if a user uninstalls the app right after, because I know fake ads, they have been acquired by a fake ad or whatever, um, then if the uninstall rates are high, something is wrong, right? It's also related to the churn rate, but it's very early in the funnel. So 100%, you also need to take a look at how many users are uninstalling the app and when they're doing so, when in the user funnel, user acquisition funnel.
That's so critical. When are they? Because if it's instant, then it's probably some problem with targeting or messaging or something like that, or your onboarding experience. If it happens at a price point, a subscription sign on point, that's understandable, but maybe there's things you can work around that. If it happens after a new app update, ouch, you might have some loyal users and you change something significant in your game, and all of a sudden the mechanic doesn't work for them and it's not fun anymore, or they think it's not worth it. Knowing why they uninstalled, absolutely critical. Mistake number 13, not being aware of the synergies between user acquisition and app store optimization. Talk about that.
Yeah, I will also link it with the next one, which is underestimating the power of ASO number 14. I will be covering both together. So definitely, if you need to understand which are the search terms that are bringing organic traffics. For example, you might be ranking on the top 5 for specific search terms. So you need to understand if it's actually worth it to um, actually spend money on user acquisition or Apple Search Ads or even in Google Search or Google App Campaigns for specific search terms, right? Because if it doesn't bring any incremental installs or revenue, then it doesn't really make sense to spend money on those search terms that you are covering through ASO or organically, right? And vice versa. So if you're not ranking on specific search terms that you would like to, the easiest way to do that or the quickest way to do that is actually to target those terms through Apple Search Ads, for instance, right? Rather than to rework the full ASO strategy. It could be more expensive in the long run, but definitely it's a very quick and immediate change that you could do to get more an incremental revenue.
And there's times when if you can align your UA and your ASO, then you can boost your impact, 1+1 = 3 in some cases, right? Because you're ranking better and so your click through is better and other things like that are happening. So there's a lot to be learned there. So that was number 13 and number 14. Mistake number 15 is not analyzing user ratings and feedback regularly. Super interesting. Chat about that one.
Yeah, I have a very funny, sad story, I would say, because it impacted one of our clients negatively. And basically, Google Play Store decided to remove 50% or even more of the reviews that or ratings that
Ouch.
our client was having. It was a dating app, and of course, those ones were 5-star, 4-star reviews, so the best ones. And randomly, they decided, okay, these are fake reviews, so we will be removing all of them. And then the rating went down heavily, and this 100% impacted the conversion rate from click to install. Because if users get to an App Store page or a Play Store page where the only thing they see is are users complaining about the app and nothing is good, then they are not likely to install it, right? So first of all, ratings and reviews matter, and you need to feedback them regularly. I mean, providing a good answer, like as a mediator, so to say, or explaining why the experience that they had was bad, or why something happened to them. So other users might see, okay, this might not happen to me, right? So and I know that there's someone or a real person behind this screen. So that definitely will help.
That is a nightmare scenario. Your ratings crater from maybe a 4.3 to a 2.1 or something like that. That's massive and huge. That'll keep people up at night. It's funny. We finished the 15 mistakes here, but as I look over them, it reminds me how challenging a job it is to grow mobile apps, because it's not like you can focus on one thing. You've got to diversify your spend. You've got to keep spending even when there's measurement limitations because of scan or privacy sandbox or other things like that. You have to keep testing. You have to have a framework for that. You've got to align your messaging with your core proposition. You've got to look at your creatives, your ad placements, so many sources of data, different reporting places, MMP in platform. And then, of course, what's happening in app in terms of your user experience and churn and other retention, all that stuff. It's a hard job.
It is, but it's also rewarding when you see results coming through. And you see, well, I work for an agency, so it's also rewarding when you see clients are happy and they're recommending us, and the word of mouth gets spread out there.
It's always interesting to chat to different people, because you chat to people who work for one company, one brand, one app, or a portfolio of apps, and they have a certain set of challenges, right? They can go super deep and they spend a long time, over 12, 18, 36 months, whatever, with that app, versus somebody with an
Mm.
agency. And you probably dip your toes in 5, 6, 10, 15 different apps at any given, 2-week span or something like that. It's got to give you some perspective and some interesting perspective. It also has to have some unique challenges in terms of diving back into context every time.
Yeah, 100%. You might be biased in terms of the things that might be out there when you're just focusing on a few apps or a single project. So working on an agency has this dynamism, and also the opportunity to learn and try different things, because we need to adapt our strategy to different scenarios for each client, right? So, and that's how we made this LinkedIn post, basically.
And I bet you it also helps a little bit less with falling in love with a certain creative or falling in love with a certain messaging, because you don't work directly for the company, for the brand, for the app. You can say, hey, it's not working. Go walk away and change it. Pablo, this has been a lot of fun. I want to thank you for taking the time to spend with me. I know it's your evening. You're in Spain, I believe. I know you're a remote worker, but your company's in Spain. I think you are. Are you in Spain?
That's correct. Yes, it's not a late. It's 5 p.m. here, and
Okay.
it's summertime, so it's still daylight.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks to you for having me. I really enjoyed the interview. So thanks a lot, John.
You're welcome.